Who's the best Brave unit? We're going to go over each one, but these are the units that you voted for. These are your heroes. We're going to talk about how well IS took care of them and how they did for my Sharena. But we have a lot of interesting things to go over. Let me know in the comments, who are you looking at your free pick? Just your very first take on it. What do you think? First, we have Byleth, and this is a very interesting unit. At first glance, I did not know what they were doing here. So this was definitely an Omni tank, but Omni tanks need something special, especially in the area of flat DR. The big test is always, can you withstand a hit from Camilla? And I believe this unit can. We're going to go over this, and the way this video has done all the skills and such is just absolutely bonkers. So I'm going to freeze this here, and we're going to go over the weapon first. The weapon itself, this is Sublime Creator. You have Slaying, Distant Counter built in, and then for allies in a 3x3 area, you have an Omni +5, null penalties, and 7 HP healing. And then at the start of combat, if within 3 spaces of an ally, you get a bonus to attack speed, defense res, which is 14 conditionally, null penalties, true damage of max of 25, flat DR of 15, and then 15 more on specials, and then you get to restore 7 HP to unit after combat. Now, 2 of these units actually have styles, and this is a very, very powerful thing. For this unit, you can change to the 3 range effect, which, keep in mind, this is a sword. This is a sword that is suddenly going 3 spaces. So if you imagine the creator's sword whipping out, that's kind of the effect that they're going for. But when that style is active, you get an additional preempt pulse, a conditional true damage of 20% of attack versus Dragon's Beast when special triggers. This is nice, and all of this is pointing to the hit and sit strategies that they love so much. The question is, when this unit attacks, are they actually going to be able to take anybody out? It is hard to get a unit that both has high flat DR and has high true damage. To crack a lot of the saviors right now, it takes something really, really special, and we'll talk about whether this unit does it or not, but first we need to talk about Professor's Guidance, or Prof's Guidance. So, at the start of enemy and player phase, if unit is within 3 spaces of an ally, grants Prof's Guidance and null follow-up to unit and allies within 3 spaces. And then a special cooldown is at its max, you get preempt pulse to unit and allies within 3 spaces. And then we get, at the start of combat, if within 3 spaces of an ally, you get an Omni +9, true damage +7, flat DR +7, you get reduces foes damage reduction by 50%, and then you get potent follow of 100%. Read that as extra hit at 100%, which is good because you absolutely need that. Then we get to find out what Prof's Guidance is, and this is hilarious. While unit is alive, grants 2 times SP after combat or assist use. So you really have to understand that Satachi was saying that he really wanted a new Omni SP skill, and they took his favorite unit and they wasted space on the preference weapon with getting 2 times SP. That is so funny. It's not bad though, and I think it will help a lot of people in farming. I don't know if it's exactly what you wanted in your favorite and getting voted in here. I think we really wanted that as a seal, but that's a whole other different topic. You have Omni Valor right here. So anyway, in combat effects, you get an Omni +5, then you get DR Piercing and Preempt Pulse. So all in all, Prof's Guidance isn't a bad deal at all, but it is just interesting that we get the 2x SP. That is not something I had on my bingo card. The next piece that you want to talk about is this Null Sea Avoidant. This is actually a pretty decent skill. If a skill compares unit speed, you get Phantom Speed +7, reduces damage from AoEs by 80%, inflicts attack speed -4 on foe, deals damage equals, and we'll just call that a max of 15. And then you get a flat DR of 20% this unit's speed, and you get null counter disrupt. This is a really good B skill. Like, this has all the things you want out of this: true damage, flat DR, null counter disrupt, and resistance to AoEs. When we're talking about Omni tanks right now, you really need the capability to be alone. And there are several reasons for that. The first is Camilla, and Camilla loses a lot of her oomph if you don't have a whole lot of units around you to build up those penalties so that she doesn't get as much true damage. The other thing you might be going up against is Larother, and throwing around save willy-nilly is a powerful thing in light season that you have to get around and have to have your units either soloed or you have to plan around them. And either way, you're not going to have as many supports around you as you possibly can. So the question is, can this unit act all on his own? We're going to go along and we're going to see, this is an AoE hit just to show you how well that works. And 80% reduction is great. I will say AoEs are just not part of the meta right now. They have nerfed them so incredibly hard that it takes something really, really special to make an AoE work. Even Emblem Sigurd, who does have something incredibly special, struggles a bit with that. So the thing you should be asking about is, how does the damage analysis pan out? A flat DR of 57 is enormous. I need to break that down, and I probably need a little blowout for this chart just to explain some of these. For just a baseline, you get 37. For a first hit, it's 42. If it's a foe's special hit, you get 52. And if it's all combined, that's where the 57 hits. So that is if it is the first hit and the foe procs a special, you get 57 flat DR.
But I'm begging you.
And that is still enormous. That is, I'm going to have to redo this scale because I've had several units now just blow it out of the water. And comparing that to Neithhoger of, of the past, it is absolutely nutty how far that number has traveled. This unit is going to be difficult to kill. The question again is, how does this unit do against Camilla? And how does this unit do against Baldr? And we're going to talk about her in just a second. The true damage of 47 is, I think that this is sufficient for an Omni tank. Most of the nukes you have going up against you right now aren't just insane in regards to bulk. And so you're not having to worry about that just being sky high like Camilla. 47 is still very high. So that is decent right there. We then have the boosted damage, and this is, I've got this broken out into two different numbers. This is 37 when the special goes off. If your style is active as well, you get an additional 12. And that really bumps you more into a nice area, whereas now you're kind of in the yellow area, and that would bump you into the green area there. So the thing you want to think about, though, is that style is never going to be active when you are in the enemy phase. And I think that's really where you're going to be focusing on this unit and how well can this unit survive. Looking at the numbers, I have high hopes, but it is so hard right now to survive with the just absolutely nutty things that are happening. And so I really want to get this unit into testing. We will do that. My initial outlook on this unit, though, if we're looking at the Omni Tank tier list, I do think this is going to be the best Omni Tank in the game. And I think you're going to be able to play with this unit fairly well and get around the map. And I think you're going to be able to kill enough things. I don't think you're going to be able to take out saviors. I don't think he has enough oomph for that. That's not to say this unit isn't good. And that's not to say it isn't possible, because keep in mind you do have Potent 100. If you put something like the Erica Seal on this unit, suddenly you're hitting 5 times with 47 true damage. And that is a lot. Again, we're gonna have to test this unit though. I'm very curious to see how this unit works and how much SP you can rack up. Baldr is up next, and on first glance, I was not a fan of this unit, and I had to dig very, very deeply into this to figure out what in the world was going on. So we have basically this is a bow flyer. So this is just like Eikþyrnir. You can see the Eikþyrnir outfit there, which I think is a little uncreative, but again, that is the problem with having units like this. You don't have a whole lot to go off of in terms of lore. And so it's what we've got. But this unit is really trying to bring back boosted damage. And we're going to look at this. They do it in a very unique way that I am kind of a big fan of. And the first thing I want to look at is Truth Seeker. This has Slaying, effective against flyers. It neutralizes effective versus flyers. And at start of turn, if within 2 spaces of an ally, grants +1 movement. Excellent. Start of phase to unit and allies within 2, you get 50% DR piercing and special charge +1. Okay, so we keep asking about this special charge +1 because they seem to be handing it out a lot lately. The special acceleration is really trying to tell you that they want you to focus on the special. Now, understand I'm saying that's what IS is saying. I am not saying I'm not saying that specials are back, but I will say that specials have been getting a lot better recently. The problem is what we're seeing with these new Brave units is they also have just enormous amounts of special flat damage reduction. So it's difficult to get that kind of thing going when you also just keep nerfing it at the same time. But that's not to say it's bad, and it's just not my favorite. I would rather have, an SP bonus. But anyway, so we'll move on. If you initiate orders within 2 spaces of an ally, you get a bonus equal to Omni 14 conditionally, true damage of 25 conditionally, a flat DR of Y, which is 50% of speed or 20% if you're in triangle disadvantage, and you double that for specials. And then you get half tempo. And this is where things get interesting because the style is basically changing the color of the unit as if it were green instead of blue. And what that means, there's a lot of things that have to do, that are baked in here that have to do with weapon triangle and weapon triangle advantage. What that does is in the player phase, it lets you be very creative with how this unit is run, and it widens the range of units that you can attack. And basically it says unless you're colorless or unless you are green, this unit is going to have a way to get weapon triangle advantage against you. So I will say roughly half the units. That's not the way that really works, but anyway, that's what we'll call it right here. This is interesting. We need to go on and dig deeper, though, and see what else we have there, because we have Heaven's Steed. So we have Canto remaining, minimum of 1. Start of turn, if within 2 spaces of an ally, you inflict Triangle Adept, inflict exposure, and this is to closest foes and foes within 2 spaces of them. So keep in mind that is infinite range. Both of those are very interesting effects when we talk about this specific unit. At start of combat, if you initiates orders within 2 spaces of an ally, you get Omni +9, bonus damage of +7, DR of 7, full no follow-up, and a Brave effect if exposure is active on foe or unit has weapon triangle advantage. So I'm going to hit play and we're going to ask what in the world does all this mean. This is really focusing in on the old school, trying to bring back the weapon triangle. I mean, that is flat out what they're trying to do. What I will caution is this cuts both ways. By amplifying triangle advantage, you run into an issue where you can make your units weaker as well as stronger. So just understand that. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing, but this is something that you're going to want to look at. You can see right there, this unit is going up against Fjorm. Wouldn't have had weapon triangle advantage, switches to green, and now can take Fjorm out through Shield Fighter. So there are lots of questions you should be asking about this unit, but first we need to talk about Arch Rival, and this is inheritable. When special triggers, boost damage by X% of greater of units or foes attack If unit has triangle advantage, X equals 80, otherwise X equals 70. That is a lot of boosted damage. 80% is a good amount, and you'll see that cooldown is at 5. So they're really making you work for that. Reduces damage from foe's first attack by 40%, and inflicts special cooldown charge -1 on a foe per attack during combat. And also, if unit has weapon triangle advantage, grants special cooldown count -2 to unit and inflicts special cooldown count +2 on foe before unit's first attack during combat. Everything in here is trying to get you to arch rival on the second hit of that brave attack. So keep that in mind. That's really what we're going for. We're going to let this play for just a little longer. We're going to watch the shenanigans that are about to occur as you switch this over. You get cooldown count going crazy. You get arch rival going off, and you absolutely obliterate Neithogr. So, that's a lot of things. There's a lot going on, and I want to break this down into what the damage analysis is. And this is going... Okay, don't react to this. I need to give you the full numbers, but I'm going to show this right now. As a flat DR of 83. I'm very tired. I'm up way too late. The small human is going to be up in a couple of hours. We're going to check that number, but I believe that is correct. Let me break down exactly what is going on, though. On a normal hit, you're getting 38. On the first hit, you're getting an additional 7. On a special hit, you're doubling 38. And all together, if it's a first hit with a special, you're getting 83 flat DR. That is an enormous amount. And this is going to be an absolute scourge on Eithyrnir's defense. The thing you will want to do is isolate the unit. That will help a lot. Or have triangle advantage on this unit. That will also help a ton. Keep in mind that the style will only be active in the player phase. So a green unit will be very, very good against Baldr. That's where we're at. I say that though, that still is a ton of flat DR. Past that, you get a true damage of 47, which is very nice, and you get a boosted damage of 62. But understand when I'm going over that doesn't have a proper way to really include weapon triangle advantage and the triangle adept that goes with it. That's going to take that boosted damage and really push it to the right. So just be on the lookout for that. And the big question you should be asking yourself is, does this unit take out Black Knight? I think this unit does. I think this unit survives, which is crazy because Black Knight's special is nutty. I think this unit can attack in, survive, and then hit back. And I think this unit is going to take out Black Knight with 4 hits. That's it. So, what does that mean? Let's go to the tier list. For me right now, because of this unit's bulk, and remember we just talked about, you can look at this, a lot of the nukes right here are not very bulky. The exception is Julia. Julia is very, very bulky and deceptively so. Look at all the others though, and these are not very bulky units in general for ranged nukes. I believe Baldr's going to be the exception and is going to cause some problems, especially if you want to bring out your new Byleth. I think this unit is going to have a heyday with that unit. It changes things. One of the things we don't talk about, the reason Braves are meta units is because they're free. You get a free one off the bat, which is nutty, right? And then they're cheap because everyone can spark on them. That means it's not so much that these are the most powerful units in the game, although they often are. It's that everyone has them, and by definition, that is meta. So, this is what we've got. I do believe, though, that this is going to be the most valuable ranged nuke in the game. But that requires testing, and the big thing that hinges on is, can this unit take out Black Knight? That is the question everyone is asking. Next up, we have Dear Boy, and there's a couple things I want to point out about this unit. The first is, this is the most confusing unit on this banner. Unraveling this absolute trash heap of a description was my least favorite thing to do tonight. But this is a really interesting unit, and I think this is the Soren of the batch. The problem is, this unit also depends a lot on this unit's own merits. So, let's pause there. We have Tempered Antler. So, this has Slaying, Warp Bubble. At start of turn, if adjacent to only beast, we transform. We have attack +2, distant counter. At start of player or enemy phase, if within 2 spaces of an ally, grants to unit and allies within 2 spaces, attack defense +6. Fringe bonus, which is basically bonus doubler 4. Dull All, Null Panic. After start of turn skills trigger, increases all visible stat buffs of self and allies within 2 spaces by 3, max of 10. I know I did a terrible job writing that. That is a very confusing phrase. For now, consider that 10, and we'll do a better job of that later on. At start of combat, if within 3 spaces of an ally, you get bonus equal to attack defense res plus 20% of visible defense +5. You get a true damage equal to X, which is the highest visible bonus on unit or nearby allies. You get a flat DR of 50% of X, which is again the highest visible bonuses on unit and nearby allies. You get a damage reduction equals additional 50% of X versus foe specials. You can see the common trend there. And this unit wants to be a near save. And what you're really aiming for is having this unit have a far save designated for it. Let's look at Mighty Roar, because this is when things get really bonkers. So, boosted damage equals 60% of unit's defense. This unit is very, very big on how much defense they can have. You're going to want the defensive boon on this if this is your favorite unit. At start of player or enemy phase, to ally within 2 spaces, you get res +6. Magic Twin Save, we'll go over that in just a second. If support partner is present, targets them. Otherwise, this targets ally with highest res. And then in combat effects, you get a DR of 40%. Keep in mind that's in the special, so that's not pierceable. You get a preempt pulse. You have a defense check that gives you hardy bearing, and that is so important for a savior and very, very powerful. And then we go over this crazy thing called Magic Twin Save, which triggers savior if a magic staff or dragon foe initiates on an ally within 2 spaces. Remember, this is given out to one ally that's either the support partner or unit with the highest res. This is a way that in modes like Summoner Duels, you can have a second savior. Also, Chaos Season is another one of these. The thing I will caution, and this is Soren comes in and out of the meta, depending on if they have a very powerful unit to pair with. That's it. Like, Soren is really dependent on their value being based on other units around them. So, this unit is similar, but you also have to be very reliant on this unit's skill as a near save, and it affects this unit's longevity a bit. Let's go a little further here. We also have P-Save, which triggers Savior when a sword, lance, axe, bow, dagger, or beast foe initiates, so melee units. And you get some additional effects here versus Magic Staff. Dragon damage, you nullify effects that calculate damage using the lower of defense res. Okay, so adaptive damage turns that off. And then it nullifies any piercing to those units as well. I should have also mentioned that P-Save is given to this unit through the special, so that's Mighty Roar. You should take a second right here and just note that that is Swap Gate, and that's actually specifically for armors that is really a nice skill. I imagine that is going to have the same restrictions. So it's going to be to armors and infantry. I really, really want them to give me something that I can give to cavalry. And yeah, they just haven't. Cavalry and flyers would love one of these tier 4 positional skills, but they just haven't done it yet. This unit has Bold Fighter 4, which is interesting and I don't love. I think you're going to end up swapping that out. But let's move along. I want to get to the brand new save skill that this unit has. It is very reminiscent of Briar. So yeah, you can see this. The skill was so long that they had to scroll. Like in this, sorry, we need to get back to this. So 80 Briar P save. If sword, lance, axe, bow, dagger, or beast foe initiates combat against an ally, so near save, within 2 spaces of unit triggers savior. If foe uses sword, lance, axe, bow, dagger, or beast damage, grants attack defense +4 to unit, disables foes' effects that have adaptive damage, and reduces damage from foes' first attack by 5. And then you get and unit's next attack deals damage equals 40% of foes' attack damage prior to reductions. Now, be very, very careful. This unit needs this skill equipped right now, so keep that in mind. So we probably need to take a step back and just take a look at this unit. And this is a near save, and the value of this unit will very much hinge on how good they are as a near save. And that is very, very tough. I apologize, I did not do the damage analysis on this unit yet. It took so much time to unravel that ungodly special and weapon that I just ran out of time. I'm going to have a full deep dive coming out on Sunday that's going to go more into these units. For now, understand this is a near save, and they're going to designate a support partner as a far save, and that far save can't have savior equipped. So this is a creative way to get dual save into modes that don't have dual save, therefore slowing down any of your favorite modes that you really enjoy. But anyway, I'll have the full damage analysis out on that. Where I have this unit ranked is as a support hero, and I know that's a little weird, and we will have this unit ranked as a melee frontliner as well coming up. As a support partner, the reason I have this unit near the bottom of tier 1 is because I think this is going to be a very niche use case for this unit. Mainly, if you love summoner duels, I think this is going to be a fun toy for you to play with. But understand, once this unit goes down, you don't have any saves anymore. So it's a single point of failure in a meta that has insane melee nukes right now. Just nutty melee nuke. So I question the longevity of this unit, but I don't question the creativity. And we've seen time and time again that unique units have a way of sticking around and being valuable far past when we thought they would be. Keep an eye on this unit. I do think this is going to be the Soren of the batch. Real quick, we have underwear in a store that we're selling, and they're ridiculous and fun and hilarious, and go check those out. But yes, let's get back to Sharena. I'll be honest, I haven't slept very well the last couple nights, and apparently I was looking and I haven't eaten very well either. I've been so nervous about this unit. It's been 3 years that I pounded the table for Sharena to get in, and they did not make her a ranged armor, which I'm so happy about. What they did was make her a Gale Force unit, and that is very interesting in the current meta where we get so many actions for free. Let's look real quickly, and you notice that they just scroll through because that's how long it takes to get through every piece of this unit's kit, which is nutty. We're going to pause right here and look at this weapon, and this is interesting. So this has Slang. At the start of combat, if you initiate combat or is within 3 spaces of an ally, you get attack speed buff equal to 20% of unit's visible speed plus 6, true damage of 25, that's conditional, null follow-up, restores 7 HP after combat, and if unit is within 10 of follow-up threshold, you get potent follow-up 100%, which again, just look at that as an extra hit. That is the big thing you always want to look at there. So now we're going to go over the refresher status. This is interesting for this unit. So post-combat, if ally initiates combat and ends within 3 spaces of unit, grants the ally another action. I really want you to think about that. That unit doesn't have to do anything. Let's take Camilla, for instance, because that is just, the unit. And let's think about at the end, when they get an extra action just from being the 7th unit. And they go up and they attack again, and they canto back within, 3 spaces of Sharena, and you get to attack again. That's ridiculous. That is really, really neat in certain modes. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that is incredibly powerful. You're basically turning any unit into a Gale Force unit, and that is important because you can't equip Gale Force right now because you need every bit of damage that you can get, and this is a way to get around that. So that's the weapon. Let's look briefly at the C skill, the preference C, and this enables Canto distance max of 3. Start of combat, if within 3 spaces of an ally, grants Creation Pulse and Empathy to unit and allies within 3 spaces. Creation Pulse, where if there's a debuff on the opponent and you have no cooldown, you can get a preempt pulse of 2. Empathy is an in-combat +7 to all stats. Then we get, at start of combat, if unit initiates or within 3 spaces of an ally, you get attack speed +5, deals 7 damage, and then you get Miracle. That's once per combat, and that's if HP is greater than 1. Same, miracle effects there. Miracle is incredibly powerful as long as the enemy doesn't have Brave. That's okay. So after unit acts, if an ally within 3 spaces initiates combat, grants another action to unit after allies combat. Re-enables Canto if already used, and this only triggers once per turn. Okay, so you've given an extra action to whatever your most powerful nuke was. You then get, this unit comes in, attacks, and gets an extra action themselves. That is very powerful, but if you notice, it doesn't include a lot of damage. And that is something that I'm very worried about. I want to move a little bit on here and talk about, we've got Magic Light, and we've seen that before, that's not new. We have Attack Speed Aria, which is new. And if unit initiates combat or is within 3 spaces of an ally, grants bonus to units attack speed equals units maximum special cooldown count +7 during combat. That's a lot. And also, when unit special triggers, deals damage equals unit's max special cooldown times X, excluding area of effect specials. If unit triggers the unit's attack twice effect, X equals 3, otherwise X equals 5. That's a lot. If you have a 5 cooldown special, for instance, that is suddenly 25 true damage. And so what you're looking at here is that Magic Light isn't your preferred special. Something like Frost Moon or especially Ice Wall is going to be a much better special for this unit. And that's, if you include Slaying, it's going to be 20 true damage from the A skill. That is something to pay attention to. So keep in mind, we're going to be testing all of this, but yeah. This is very nice. All right, time to double back for Speed Res Shackle. This is a B skill, and I can't tell how I feel about this. At start of turn and after unit acts, if Canto triggers after Canto, inflicts Speed Shackle and Res Shackle on closest foes and foes within 2 spaces of those foes through their next action. Inflicts Speed Res -4 on foe and deals damage equal number of penalty effects active on foe, excluding stat penalties, ×2, +7, max of 15. So Speed Shackle is inflicts penalty on unit speed, equal number of penalties, active on unit, max 8. Res Shackle, same thing with Res, max 8. 8 is just not enough, but I do recognize that this is feeding itself and that it's putting penalties on the opponent and then using those to get true damage. And so that is nice. The fact that it's capped at 15 is not the best. I would have liked that cap to be at least 20, possibly 25. But this is an interesting skill and can also help support other folks on the team. That is very much what Sharena is about. Like she is benefiting the team, but also benefiting herself. And you can kind of see that in this. But we need to ask ourselves, how does the damage analysis work out on this unit? Okay. There are things to think about with this. The first is that flat DR is atrocious. That is terrible. I don't love that whatsoever. But here we are. The miracle effect is supposed to make up for that, but again, Brave is just everywhere, and that is an issue. But also, this unit is not necessarily supposed to be a primary initiator. There are lots of caveats, and really this unit ends up being more of a support unit than anything else with survivability like that. You can see the way Celica is used, and keep in mind there are definite uses for Celica. Breaking buildings randomly at 3 spaces away can be a very powerful thing. But you're never going to use her as an initiator, first off. You're always going to use her as a secondary initiator, and I believe this is going to be a similar thing to that. A true damage of 58, and keep in mind you're going to be hitting 3 times, and that potent 100 means all of those are going to be full hits. That is nice. That is definitely good. This unit is also, no follow-up and going to have pretty high speed as well. Boosted damage of 15. It's not great. That hurts a little bit, but again, I think you're going to be swapping out that special. I will say, I just mentioned Ice Wall and Frost Moon. The problem is this unit has atrocious res. So we may have to look elsewhere there. A res of 24 is what the base stat is showing here, and whew, that's going to be hard to really accommodate there. So I don't know. I'll be looking for a new special for this unit to really patch up that, or maybe we'll test this unit and find out that is just fine, and that's just not something that this kind of analysis really captures. Let's look at the tier list though, and looking at this, I do think this is the best Gale Force unit in the game because this unit turns your best nuke into a Gale Force unit. Again, I keep on using the example of Cam, but it's what Camilla does, right? One of the things is if you can have her hit a ton of times and she's going to go in and just obliterate a ton of units. It's very valuable. So that is something that makes this unit incredible. But what I will say, this is very similar to her duo unit. Her duo unit was not a primary initiator, even when she came out. It wasn't her role. But she could definitely support the team, and once you cracked that first unit, this unit could absolutely take out secondary units like nothing else. And this unit will be able to do that as well. If the unit that this unit is going up against, if Sharena is going up against a unit that isn't Brave, she's going to do very well. So just keep that in mind. I have this unit as the best Gale Force unit in the game. The caveat is Gale Force as a strategy is not at its peak right now. And what we'll need to see is if this can bring that back. So we'll see how this goes, but I do like this unit a lot, and I'm happy with what they did with her. Do I wish they would have given her reflex or more true damage? Absolutely, but I will say, pair this unit with Ingrid, and there are some mighty shenanigans that are going to happen. Okay, we need to do some housekeeping. So looking at, I know a lot of people love to summon on these banners. Here are the percentages that you get a unit just off of tickets, and it sits right around that 12%, which is not bad. If you're sparking, this is the probability that you'll get that unit on the spark. And you can see green is much better than the other colors. And as I'm going for Sharena, this is very nice. Plus 10ing a unit for green is going to be, and this is because you get, you're essentially trying to get this unit to plus 8 because you get additional stuff. It's going to be 1,100 orbs for green. It's going to be around 1,400 orbs for red, and a little more for blue, and then colorless is almost 1,500 orbs. So that is a lot. But if you're summoning for green, you're in good shape, which I am. And the other thing, and I will deny this if you ever quote this ever. Sharena is a very good fodder unit, and so if you are just looking for fodder, it is going to be easier to get her than the other units. I do think she's probably the best fodder unit in this batch. I will deny that if you ever. Didn't happen. Let's talk about plus 10ing a brave unit, because a lot of people try to do this, and I will be doing this because I'm stupid. But favoritism put aside, if you are looking to plus 10 a brave hero in a year, and I've taken red as an example in this case, if you wanted a plus 10 Felix, for instance, at 50th percentile, it would have cost you around 719 orbs. That's really, really nice. So for a plus 10, that is the absolute cheapest you are ever going to get at 50th percentile. For a normal red unit, Felix for instance, that would have cost you 1,700 orbs. So that saves you 1,000 orbs if you want to plus 10 this unit over the course of this year. And brave units tend to age better than most because of the fact that they get a refine very quickly. So keep that in mind, and this is a great way to go if you're trying to plus 10 these units if they're your favorite. Dragon flowers. This updated the dragon flowers, and this really drives home a problem with our dragon flower flow. It just needs to be increased. For reference, that 9,000 number is actually off of a guy on Reddit who calculates this, and he actually calculates this between 8 and 10,000 that you get depending on your competitive level. That's that, and I took the average and just did 9,000. The thing I really want to have you look at is the fact that if you have a Gen 1 infantry unit that you are trying to get to full flowers, to 40 flowers, it's going to cost you half your year's flowerly income. That is ridiculous, and that is something that IS needs to fix. Are you listening, IS? Probably not, but if you are, get that done. So, where are we? We've got the yearly most likely to. Eithynir 100% is likely to be the SD darling. I think there are going to be some very creative folks who have some fun ways to use him in that mode. We're going to be exploring more. Sharena is going to destroy my wallet, but also I think this is going to be one of the most fun supports in the game and is going to allow for a lot of creative play. Baldr is going to be the unit you get if you really love Eithyrnir's defense, and I am anxious to see what Infantry Pulse and all of those defense gurus do with this unit, and I am scared to death to go up against her. There are going to be definite counters, but I think you're going to have to plan for her. And then you have Byleth, who is probably going to be part of your SP farm team forever. So that is where we're at. In all honesty, I do think this unit is going to be a very nice Omni tank. And for those of you who have been doing Omni tank shenanigans, I don't think it makes those easier, but I think it gives you an additional toy to play with. And for you enemy phase folks, I think this is a great thing for you to have. So that closes us out for this generation of units, and this starts a new one. And if you would like to know the worst units from the last generation, I have an entire video on that. Go check that out. It was a lot of fun to make. Members, you are amazing. Thank you for all that you do for the channel. Take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon. And I'm going to wake up in about 2 hours, so I'm going to be tired.